Dude,
Good
right? Like
morning,
an old
guys. How
movie.
are you? Happy Saturday to you.
Happy
Happy
Saturday. What time
happy
is it?
Saturday to you.
Oh, it is 9:01. Danny's late
And what's
today.
the date?
Danny.
Danny's late.
It's September 7th.
All
September
right.
7th, 2024. I wonder what the date was that we did the first live stream.
I
No
mean,
way
was
to
it
tell.
I
no
think,
way to
We'll
know?
never be able to find
yeah,
that
Yeah.
one out.
never figure it out. I
Funny thing, I
think
was just
we're
looking at
getting
them the other day.
close to maybe when we started doing these.
Yeah, it would have been, it's almost a year, I think, because I think it was sometime around either October or November we started these, I think.
Yeah.
Every Saturday. Look at that. Look at that
I mean,
consistency.
we've been doing it for longer than that, but the live stream's not that long.
Yeah.
So. Hey, Tristan, good morning. Hey, Randall, good morning.
Morning, guys.
Good to see you guys. I love the title that he made for
Yeah.
today's live stream. It's not like why
Nope. It's very
alternatives
direct.
are better and nothing like that. It's just like fuck boot camps. Like screw
Yeah.
them.
You know what, though? I
Well,
do kind of feel that way,
that's how you
though.
make a best-selling novel nowadays. You
Yeah.
just put F star CK in the title and everybody reads it.
Dude, it's every dude, the
RCK.
self-help section's so funny now because it's all SH, asterisk T or F asterisk CK. That's
Everyone's
it.
just
Pretty
everyone's
much.
just angry, I think. Why are we all
Yeah.
angry? What are we all angry at?
No.
I
No.
don't know.
Where
Lots
to
of things,
begin?
probably.
Where to begin?
Where
Where
to
can we even
begin?
start, sir?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I guess we
You know,
already
before
know.
we get into
Oh,
that,
okay.
yeah, before we get into that, you know, I'm sure we're going to be talking a whole bunch about boot camps, but we have like an alternative to boot camps
It's like the
that
other white meat of boot camps.
it's like the other
Yeah.
thing that, you know, probably works a lot better. We've been doing some pretty awesome stuff in there recently, like integrating APIs, using Google Maps, all this fun stuff, working as teams. What
Using the
is
latest
this thing that we're
technologies.
doing that people just don't know about yet?
The web dev incubator, is that what you're talking about?
Oh, Web Dev Incubator. Did somebody say Web Dev Incubator?
Yes.
Very
That
nice.
that's your whole pitch?
Yeah, I'm done. Up
That
to
was
you
Okay.
good,
guys
though.
now.
I like that. That was good. I'm done.
Yeah, we
I'm
have a
out.
program where you can learn more about all the interesting programming stuff. But anyway, moving on. Today's topic is about boot camps and why you're probably almost, I could say, shooting yourself in the foot by taking a boot camp. And I know,
I like to call it Plexico bursting yourself.
oh,
That's a throwback to when he shot himself in the leg.
okay.
Super
I know
specific.
there's some people inside the group, and I see Bryce is here. Good morning, Bryce. Bryce is probably like, feeling this one right now. Bryce is in the middle of a boot camp. He's also inside our web dev incubator. And it seems almost weekly that Bryce is like, man, I freaking hate this boot camp. Or like, this boot camp is so dumb, or um, I don't know.
I can't believe this is the way they teach us.
Yeah,
Yeah.
or none of this code they gave us works. Or
Well, dude, that's the funny thing. Like, it's like, and that happened in our boot camp too. Is like they create these programs, they create content, and then they never update it. Like, dude,
yeah,
he was using, I know in his, like, they were using, like, I think Python 3.7. They're on, like, 13.13 now. So that's, like,
yeah.
like
And
5 years old. And then you
I'll
have,
admit,
like,
like, admittedly, it is pretty hard to update this
yeah,
stuff because
constantly.
by the time you make a video, I mean, like, I've made a bunch of these videos and it takes multiple hours to make a video, right? It's not a simple thing. It's like it takes, however long it takes to
Yeah.
actually create the whatever you're building. Then you have to record you building that again, and then you have to edit that, and it can take a long time, right? Multiple hours. So admittedly, it takes a while, right? But agreed, like you're using technology moves so quick. By the time I build any tutorial today, tomorrow that technology is going to change. So, um, admittedly, it's hard, but that's why inside our web dev incubator, we just build projects with you in person, live, because then we can use the latest technology and you can learn the latest things, right? As we do them with you, so we
Yeah.
all learn.
I will say it's funny. Like I remember when we first did the boot camp. Like I will say, like the one thing, like I
I'm
was
reading
at
your
3 a.m. in the
Randall's
morning and
comment.
I saw it.
Yeah, Bryce
I,
is always commenting at 3 in the morning. He's
I
like,
will, because
this
that's when he's getting
freaking
frustrated
code,
with it.
man.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like Bryce, go to sleep, bro.
I remember though, like when we started our boot camp, like the one thing I will say that was like good about because at the time, like, we none of us had been like we've all like loved tech, but we were all doing different careers. So, like, I didn't know it was out there. And like on the one hand, that was great, like getting introduced to technologies, but that was like the only benefit, and we weren't taught it. And then the other thing is like I could have done that on my own had I just thought about that ahead of time, basically.
Yeah.
So it was like it's nice having when somebody gives you structure. I get that, but they're really not set up the way. And everybody in our cohort, I think, failed that thing. I'm pretty positive they aren't doing
Oh
anything with it.
yeah, for sure. I mean, I think
Mhm.
one of the like what you just mentioned is really the biggest benefit of a boot camp, because I don't want to just like straight up hate on them, but the main benefit that you're going to get out of going to any boot camp is just that they're going to lead you towards technologies, right? It's uh, we say this a lot, but I think it's worth noting again is that when you take a boot camp, expect that you're going to get, 1 inch deep and a mile wide of every technology, right? So you're gonna see
But you
everything
can
there
list
is.
them all on your resume.
Yeah. Yeah.
and and every employer will understand when they see boot camp and then 30 technologies that you actually know zero of them.
Yeah.
Like big goose egg, because the reality is it takes developers years, literally years, to become proficient, I would say, or like qualified in a single language. And then you come along as a new, junior developer who just graduated boot camp, and you're like, yeah, I just spent 6 months in a boot camp and I know 30 technologies better than your senior developers. And they're like, yeah, bullshit.
Yeah.
Right.
Call bullet on
Uh,
that.
Well, I
So,
want to talk about why boot camps work because,
okay.
or at least why they sell. Because they promise the dream. They sell the
Mhm.
dream, they
Yep.
promise that, and it scratches the itch. So people hear about web development and it sounds, or any type of programming, and they're like, this sounds awesome. I can work whenever I want, I can work wherever I want, I can be my own boss, I'll make more money. This is
Yeah.
freaking awesome. How do I do this? Because I read this article that said it takes 5 to 10 years, and that's just too long. I need this now. Oh, boot camp. They say 6 months and I got this. Okay, let me pay $5 to $15,000.
Well, you
Yeah.
know what, too? They use the same, and this is the other thing I think this is the other thing that frustrates me with them, and they use the same model as colleges, really, which is, this
Yeah.
education system that we've been talking up and valuing forever, and even though it doesn't work, people still go and take out huge loans for it, and so boot camps are looked at as like a part of that, I think, and that's the other problem too, because I think they're all. It's sad, but anymore, I think all of our education institutions like that are predatory as hell.
Invest in your future.
Yeah, they put it all like that, but really the reality is it's like you're just taking out significant debt and you're not going to get anything out of it unless you put a ton of work in. And most people just don't realize that going in either. And I think that's the other failing point on them is like, I remember when we joined ours, they were like, it's like 1 to 2 hours a day. And it's like, dude, no way. If you really want to learn this, because like, I mean, we were doing like, I was doing like 6 to 8 hours a day every day. And it's
Yeah.
like, it's
And still,
ridiculous.
it wasn't even enough.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I
Uh,
it's
Me too, Randall.
Yeah, I would say this too. I think it's important to note that boot camps have changed significantly over the years. I think not necessarily in like what content they teach or anything like that, but just the outcomes for people, I think, have changed quite a bit. I think, if you look back maybe 10 or maybe 15 years ago, I think more like 10 years ago, and you looked at people who went into a boot camp, they were able to find work pretty easily. And that's because tech companies were on a hiring rampage.
They were
Like they
fighting
were,
each other for hiring,
yeah,
actually. And like, so yeah, I think that's people forget that too. When boot camps first started, that's why tech companies had these layoffs with 10,000 people not that long ago, because they were just hiring like crazy. Because it was
yeah.
like unrestrained hiring. It was crazy. And that's how
And
people were getting jobs.
this is something that I've noticed too over since we've actually started this group. I've been talking to a lot of people about joining the web dev incubator and really more about like their goals as a developer, what their interest is in becoming a developer. And I have to say that, unsurprisingly, the number one reason why most people want to become a developer, can you guys guess?
Money or freedom?
It's because developers get laid. That's why.
Yeah, that's I've always heard that.
I don't know where you found that one, but no. Danny was right. Way to go, Danny.
Thanks.
What
Yeah,
did he
not hard.
say?
Money or freedom.
Yeah,
One of the
money
Oh.
two.
freedom. It almost always comes down to money. Most people that I talk to are like, I'm struggling to make money, and I heard that you can make money as a developer, right? Or I just want to make more money, and I heard that this is an easy way to make more money. And I think that is to blame, like the boot camps are to blame for that ideology because people assume that because I do a boot camp, I'm immediately worth six figures or more, right? to some company. And I don't think that's true. It's certainly it used to maybe be true, but I don't think that was like the true value of those people. I think those companies were just had excess money to just hand out, so they were just doing it. But now, our economy has changed quite a bit, and a lot of these companies are not just hiring willy nilly for no reason to just fill seats anymore. They actually need people. I mean, you look at um, like Twitter, for example. Elon Musk went in, bought it, and removed 90% of the staff, like literally 90%, and it works just as well as it ever did. Okay, so that
Yeah.
shows you just that, the number of developers that were hired by these companies was unnecessary.
I'm glad you mentioned that too, though, with the money thing, though, because I think it is a problem where, like, I think the reason why we were successful is we all genuinely love tech and like
Yeah.
enjoy learning, enjoy looking this stuff up, reading, looking at YouTube tutorials, all that stuff. Really enjoy it. Enjoyed meeting every Saturday, talking with each other, kind of figuring out what everybody's doing. And that's why we're successful. Like, it's not just like if
Yeah.
you're just coming at this because like it's an easy way to make money, you're not going to do well because you're going to
Well,
quickly
you're
realize it's
also
hard.
going to burn out too quick
Yeah.
because the reality is that it's not easy. It does take a lot of time. It takes a lot of mental energy. That's literally what, like, the currency that you're working in is
Oh,
mental
it is.
energy. And as
Yeah.
soon as you hit a roadblock and you're like only doing this for money, you're going to very quickly look for some other way to make money faster. And the reality that a lot of people have right now who are going into a boot camp, I think if you're realistic about your expectations, that's one thing. But what a lot of people are being fed, and the misinformation that people are being fed, is you just take a boot camp and you're going to find a job immediately. And the reality is that boot camp barely, barely, barely even prepares you to apply for a job.
Yeah.
Well, that's a great point because our boot camp was like 11 months or something like that.
Yeah.
And we spent, I think, like 9 or 10 months dabbling in every technology under the sun. And then we finally got around to React, which is what most companies are hiring for in the last month, and did like a super shoddy uh,
Project.
No, and we
project
we didn't even do
in
it from start
React.
to finish. It was like
Yeah.
everything was
Yeah.
it was a mess. Yeah, we didn't learn anything about how to put it together. God, it was a bad
Yeah.
website too. It was like a website from the 90s.
Hmm.
Yeah. And that's the reality, right? Is that you're not going to get hired by a company for knowing vanilla HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. That is the core foundational understanding that you need, but nobody's hiring for that. So you need to actually build real projects that use modern technologies. And that's one of the things where I think a lot of boot camps fail because they can't continuously build new projects. It's too much work, right? For their model of like what they're doing. And it would take a while for them to integrate all of that stuff.
Yeah,
Uh,
their models create ones keep selling basically. And it's funny too that like I was thinking about this the other day too. Like, people don't realize too when you go to college now, like for instance, like right, most people that go to college, like just getting your undergrad degree is pretty valueless now. Even though it costs a
yeah.
fortune, like you end up having to go for additional certifications or graduate school and stuff. And I think what people don't realize about boot camps is they're basically the same. Like it's a start.
Hmm.
It's a starting point, basically. It's like it can get you started, but you're still gonna have to put a ton of work in afterwards to learn and to build unique things on your own. Because like the stuff you're gonna build in there is not gonna be good enough any either for you to like put on a resume to get a job. Like it's gonna
Yeah.
be, it's
I
fun to
think,
do, but it's not gonna be that.
Yeah, I think there just needs to be a sort of reality check for people who are interested in boot camps, and it's hard because most of these people are just like, "Hey, I want to make more money." Maybe there's passion there for some people, a percentage of them, and I think there is for sure. I think the three of us and all of the people inside the incubator, everybody has passion for actually learning this stuff. They're interested in it, and high pay is the cherry on top, right? But if that's not you, if you're just like, hey, I'm here for pay, unfortunately, what happens is a lot of people are sold just this story of like what's going to happen, and the reality is that unless you have passion for it, you're just never going to follow through with it. So like think about, a professional sports player, okay? Like it can be any sport, your favorite sport, but like think professional major league sports player, okay? When it comes to software development, when you go into the world, if you're trying to find a job at a FANG company like Google, Facebook, whatever, you're trying out for a professional league, like literally like the NHL or whatever you want to call it, right? Of coding. And so, do you really expect that you're going to go to a 9 month long boot camp and compete with NHL players? Like, imagine doing that in real life.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm going to go to this football boot camp for the
And they
next
get
9 months,
killed.
and then I'm going to go jump into an NHL game. Like, you'd get destroyed, right? But that's the expectation that people have in this. And it's unfortunate because it's not their fault. They're just being told this stuff, and it's a straight up lie. Like you're just not going to be able to do that. Go ahead, Randall.
So now that we've effectively knocked boot camps, what are some alternatives? Like
Yeah.
what if you had to do it over again and boot camp was like a major cannot do that.
Yeah.
How would you go about doing it? What would you do?
So so I would say this. I think the number one most valuable piece of a boot camp is the curriculum structure. Not necessarily the curriculum itself, but how they like are able to take you down a path of like, hey, I want to become a web developer. These are the things that you need to learn, right? So like each type of developer is going to be different too. And this is something that I've seen a lot when I talk with people is try to ask people like, what do you want to become? Like what I know you want to become a software developer, but like
Yeah.
what kind, right? Because there's cybersecurity, there's web development, there's application development, there's machine learning, AI, there's data analytics. There's all these different like sort of sub niches of software development, and a lot of people don't know, which is normal because you're just getting used to it. But I think really honing down on what you want to become is very important to start out with, right? And
When
then,
did you first know? Because I didn't even know until well after the boot camp.
yeah, I know it is kind of tough. And that's one of the
It is
hard
hard. Yeah.
things
I
is
didn't know
that you
until
don't know
after.
until you start digging into it. Like we saw this recently with Bryce inside the group is like Bryce in the past few weeks has had like a love affair with Python. I don't know if you guys noticed
Yeah,
that.
get a
A little
room.
bit, right? But I mean, it
But
actually
like
makes
every
sense
day
coming
he's
from
like, "Oh
his.
my God, man, I've been making out with Python for
Yeah.
like hours and
Dude,
it's
me and
the
Python
best
just
thing
been in the
ever."
closet for hours and hours. It's funny because he but coming from his background too as an engineering background, it makes sense because
Yeah.
he's interested in data, he's interested in manipulating numbers and stuff like that, and Python's great for that. Like, but yeah, no, I think your point is right though. Like, I know when we started, like I started out with Python and I really enjoyed it, and then I started doing more JavaScript and I really like that. It's like I think it's just it takes that's the other problem is you it's like one of these industries where like you won't know what you really want to do until you start doing it. Until
Yeah.
you really start digging into it and figuring it out and realizing like, do I want to create stuff? Am I more interested in manipulating data? Am I more interested in, what is it about this that I really love?
Yeah. So I want to finish up a point and then I want to actually talk about Randall's what he just put in
Yeah.
the comment there. But um yeah, so like I think it is kind of tough in the beginning to know exactly what you want to do, right? But I think it's important to figure that out as soon as you can, or at least head in a certain direction as soon as you
Yeah.
can. Because really the most benefit that I think I got out of the boot camp was just the structure of like these are the technologies you need to learn to get a job, right?
Yep.
They did introduce us to React. Now, granted, what they showed us, I think the MERN stack, right, which is important. So understanding a tech stack that you can work with in your particular field is important. So that's sort of where I would go first is
I
like,
would say the introduction stuff was good, but they didn't explain anything, and you don't really,
yeah.
yeah, I mean that's the other side of that too.
So
But you do get the introduction.
yeah. So what I would probably do is I would probably figure out what I want to do, like whether that's the company I want to work for or the job I want to have. Go on LinkedIn, look at LinkedIn jobs for like people who are hiring for the job that you want. Go find what technologies they're hiring for, like what tech stack, whether that's React or whatever it is. Like there's a million different technologies out there, and each company is going to hire for something different. Figure it out what it is, and then I would even probably use ChatGPT to just make myself a game plan of attack of like how I'm going to learn these different technologies and just start chipping away at them and literally just like use ChatGPT as your coach to say, hey, what are within like HTML, what do I need to know? Right? Things like that. And then I would go from there. Go ahead,
I was gonna
Danny.
say like if we did it over again, I would have like honestly like getting like a even like a free Odin project course on full stack or like something like
Yeah.
that or like Udemy and then just doing what we did, meeting every Saturday and working together and building
Yeah.
projects, I think is the best way to learn. Like,
Yeah.
because you're
Agreed.
doing unique stuff, new stuff, you're going from start to finish, something you never do in boot camps. And that's the other problem
Yeah.
that I hate about it was like everything was always where we're just thrown in the middle. You know, it's like
Yeah.
here's the middle
Like
of
a
the
lot of
thing.
copy and paste and
You don't see how to
yeah.
start it, you don't see how to design it, and you don't understand how to even put it in production. So like you
Yeah.
come out of it with just like very basic knowledge of a lot of things to start off. And I think that's what it's like a springboard, right? But you have to do a lot of work after it.
Yeah. So I wanted to
I would have
mention
probably
that.
gotten, oh, hang on. I would have probably gotten one of, or actually I did get one of those like 2022 complete web developer courses or something like that. One of
Yeah.
those things. I would have gotten one of those things on Udemy, gone through it all the way, and then probably just worked on completing every new project from JavaScript Mastery because that
Yeah.
would have gotten me like into the modern frameworks that people are using, getting used to doing it, and just being uncomfortable the first 5 projects and just being like, I have no idea what the heck I'm doing. But then you just see it over and over and over again, and it starts to click.
Yeah.
Yeah. You mentioned JavaScript Mastery. That's a YouTube channel. And that would be like a great guide for somebody who's interested in web development, but the equivalent in whatever other field you're going into, certainly. I wanted to mention, so Randall Lapointe inside the comments mentioned, what about networking at a boot camp? Probably a benefit. I would actually disagree. And
Yeah.
the reason why is this.
Not a good
The
place.
sort of networking, Randall Lapointe is inside the web dev incubator, and the sort of networking that you are getting inside the web dev incubator is a lot different than what you will get in a boot camp. And I'm pretty sure Bryce can attest to this, and some of the other members inside of our group who are in boot camps can attest to this, is that generally speaking, most people that go to a boot camp are sold this lie that you're just going to make 6 figures after 6 months and
Doing no work.
doing no work and not having
Yeah.
to struggle or anything like that, right? Um, and so what a lot of people do is they don't take it on full like wholeheartedly. They casually go into this boot camp and they're like, I'll just like do it when I have time, or they don't
Well, they
see it
say an
because they're
hour a
going to,
day, is enough. That's
yeah,
all. Yeah.
exactly. And so what I noticed a lot, because here's the thing, the three of us took a boot camp together. As you guys are probably well aware by this point, we like to talk, right? We're very
Yeah.
capable of talking and meeting new people, and we're interested in new people and networking. And we networked a lot inside of our boot camp. In fact, the three of us
Yeah.
were the most outspoken in our entire cohort for the entire, I think, 11 months that we took that. Right? We regularly engaged in conversation. We were the first people to be like, "Good morning, how's everyone doing?" Right?
Yeah.
And
Trying to talk to people, and most people were
the only
like,
ones who
"Huh."
regularly did the work.
Yeah.
You
He said we're the ones that regularly did the work.
oh yeah, yeah, exactly. We were the ones who regularly did the work. We came and we were prepared and like had all this stuff. But like a lot of people, basically, when you're like, "Good morning, how you guys doing today?" They're like, "Hello."
Yeah.
That was
That's
it.
it.
Like that was like the extent of it. So, and we even went as far as after we got out of the boot camp, we engaged other people in our boot camp to start a group and we started building projects with them. That's like literally how we started with this, right? We started building projects with other people, and we started building like this pizza site, and most of them just like dropped out after like a week. Like they were like, I'm just not gonna show up, or like they'd show up and do like nothing, or they'd show up and like, bullshit and weren't, serious about like actually learning or growing or anything like that. So I would say, like, yes, there is networking opportunity there, but it's actually not great because a lot of the people are not taking this seriously. They're not committed to the idea.
It's also like they were also sold the lie, and I think a lot of people are not prepared for it either. We had a lot of people
Yeah.
in our boot camp that we saw that like they didn't even know how to use a computer. Now
Yeah.
look,
Open
you're starting a boot
files,
camp, and
nothing.
the boot camp
Yeah.
proudly said no experience like required. You just need to know how to basically turn on your computer, and that is a
Yeah.
lie because they had so many problems. Like when you got to installs and stuff, like they just didn't know how to do anything, and any problem they would just give up because there's no help. And I think that's the other
Yeah.
problem, right? Like, it's easy to quit when you have nobody, there's no accountability because they got your money. They don't care.
Yeah. And I would say this too. I mean, you know, part of the opportunity for networking is facilitated by the people who run the boot camp, or in our case, like the three of us, right? Like we show up every time that we have a call
Yeah.
and we facilitate conversation, right? Like we're engaging people in it may not be like a strict curriculum, but we're every day that we show up on any call that we do, we have some plan of like, this is what we're going to do today, or at least try to accomplish. And then we engage people in each other and like, hey, what have you been up to? Show us like what you've been working on, right? And without somebody actually doing that, without the prompt, what ends up happening is people just show up and they're like, hey, how's it going?
Hmm.
Yeah.
Nothing ever happens, right? So you actually need that like engagement. And I will say this too: the people who were actually in the boot camp are, I don't know what are instructors, I guess you could call them. Like a large majority of the time, those were just recent boot camp graduates,
And they didn't know
literally
anything.
just hired out of taking the same boot camp,
Dude, the
right? So
girl that taught us HTML
yeah,
constantly didn't know the answers to the most simple questions,
yeah.
like the most
I
simple
mean,
stuff.
there's
Like,
things
which
where
is
I was like,
okay. You don't have to know
there's like
everything. I'm not
red
saying that,
flag
but
things. Like I'm pretty sure there was one this is like hilarious almost, but I'm pretty sure there was like one meeting that we were in where she literally said, I don't use folders in my computer. I just throw every file in the same spot.
oh
You
yeah, that's
remember
right.
that?
She
Like
did that.
she's
Yeah,
like, yeah,
her.
I don't organize anything in my computer. I just put it all on the desktop. Like everything
Because
lives
her
there.
desktop was chaotic. It was
Yeah.
insane.
Hmm.
Yeah.
I did want
I-
to mention one
yeah.
other thing about boot camps. Like one of the reasons for me that is one of the biggest failure points for a boot camp is I'm of the firm belief that given a long enough time frame, you can learn anything.
Yeah.
And like you can take a look at this when you look back at your life because there are probably some tests that you crammed for and it was like really, really impossible. But then later on in life, you may have learned that stuff and you're like, oh, you know what? I've taken more time, I probably could have figured it out. And that's
Yeah.
with like most stuff, just because it takes time to integrate. And so like
Yeah.
if you want to learn something big and learn something new and learn something hard, you have to give yourself enough time in order to learn it. And that's the exact opposite of what boot camps do. They take the immensity, like literally the infinite knowledge of technology. And they're like, how can we cram this into the shortest period of time possible and then pop people out
Well,
the
we
other
had what?
side,
We had,
like the Rhino scene at Ace Ventura?
yeah.
You didn't see that coming, did you, Danny?
No, I didn't. That was awesome. We had, I mean, I think we did what? We did like I think if I remember correctly, we had a month on Python. I think we had maybe 3 or 4 weeks on JavaScript. Like basically all you could learn was basic data types, very basic loops, very basic functions, but never anything completed at all. And I think
Yeah.
I think this was the other struggles of boot camps is like, as a learner, you always feel like, well, the why is always missing. Like how this
Yeah.
stuff fits together, why we're doing it, it's always just absent and it's very confusing. I think that's one of the things we offer because I think ours is coaching and it's more like almost like apprenticeshipping kind of. It's the best way
Yeah.
to learn this stuff where you're building, but you're building with experienced developers that know what they're doing, that can show you how to go from start to finish.
I
They can
mean,
actually walk you through this.
it literally is being a junior developer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like literally, because we're working alongside you, building projects that you can have on your own portfolio So then when you're ready to become a mid-level developer, you've got all this stuff lined up for you, and you don't have to try and scrounge through a whole bunch of stuff in a boot camp that's not complete.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I've said this before and I'll say it again is that most people that I talk to where they're like struggling to find work as a developer, it's because they just haven't built much, right? They have learned, quote unquote, learned a lot. They've taken a ton of tutorials, watched a ton of YouTube videos, taken a boot camp or two, but they haven't actually built anything,
On
right?
their own, like
Or
they're
of
unique
substance.
projects.
Yeah, like they may have built, small projects here and there, but nothing that's like, you know, like ready to be released to the public, I guess is a good way to put it, right? And
Or
so,
nothing that's even deployed. That's the other thing. Like, is
yes,
it
like
viewable by people?
yeah.
Can you give a link? Like,
There's like an old meme that I saw where they were like, it's I forget how it was done, but it was like somebody going to an interview at for a web developer or software developer project, and they're like, "Can you show me your projects?" And they're like, "Yeah, localhost 3000, localhost 5173,
Yeah.
127.0.0.1. Those are all my projects." And if you don't get the joke, you're probably not at that level yet, but basically those are all like locally run servers, right? So they're basically saying I've never published anything. It's just code that exists on my own computer only, right? And so you can't show off code that you only have access to. It doesn't work that way. So you have to actually build real projects that other people are can use. Like, I mean, one of the best things that I ever did was I built the first thing out of a boot camp is I built my own project and it has like 12,000, 15,000 users. And anytime that anyone ever asks me, I just direct them to that. I'm like, yeah, there's 15,000 users that use this every day. And people are like blown away by that, right? But you can do 10 boot camps and 5,000 YouTube videos. But if you can't show one thing that you have built, nobody will ever hire you.
You know, the other thing, that's what made me so frustrated too in the beginning. Was like, didn't even know, they didn't even bother to walk us through how to make these things live, which is not hard.
Yeah.
And,
No, it's
it's like,
not
I
at
think
all.
that's the thing where like you miss out a lot because you don't even know how to start and finish a project. We had to learn that all on our own after the fact. And I
Well, they
think,
did
you
make
know,
us they did make us sign up for every single cloud service with a credit card.
yeah, that's
Yeah.
true.
Yeah, I know. They're like, buy AWS. We're going to teach you how to set something up where you might be charged in the future, but have fun figuring out how to remove your credit card. It's
Yeah,
Yeah,
literally
right.
part of our boot camp.
yeah.
Andrew Anderson in the comments wrote, "That's where I am at. I've built things for school projects, but they were only for grades and nothing substantial." And I think that's what a
A
lot
lot
of
of
people
people.
struggle with.
Yeah.
And here's the thing, 10 years ago, you could get hired with that. You genuinely could. But now you can't because they're a lot more discerning, they have a lot more options. And so, what we're offering inside the incubator is basically to build real world projects as if you are already working for a company, right? And getting that experience of using new technologies. You get to use brand new things that like anything that you want. I mean, we build projects based on what people inside the group want to
We
build,
are
right?
also using the most up-to-date technologies. The other thing I would say too is
Exactly.
that, not only will you build projects that you can deploy, but they're, even if you don't like, at least they're out there to live. So if you want to get freelance work too, you have stuff that you can point to. We can,
Yes,
we actually can make
exactly.
a portfolio and have real projects listed on there that people can view and check out and go from there.
Yeah.
And and it is almost identical to working with a real senior developer because
Yeah.
like when I first started when I was working in undergrad doing my Fortran project and then actually working coding Fortran, I was working with senior developers who knew what they were doing. And before
Yeah.
they assigned me stuff, they already knew how to complete it. Like they could have
Yeah.
they could have finished it in 5 minutes, but they gave it to me and said, "Okay, bring this back next week." And that was like I would struggle through it and then eventually, you know, be unable to do it and they would walk me through it. But like that's the kind
That's
of
how you learn
experience that
though.
we give. Yeah, that's the
Yeah.
experience that we give in Web Dev Incubator, where like you're going to struggle through your own projects, but you're building those projects. And then when you get to that interview, you can say, hey, these are the struggles that I had. This is how we worked through it. And that's the experience that's really valuable.
Yeah. So with that, I mean, to sum it up, I think the best thing you can do is I would say that boot camps are a great way to blow 10 grand if you got it burning in your pocket. And there is some value there, but I would say that it's not equal to how much you pay for it. I
It's also
think
value that you could get the same value for like $100 on Udemy or free on like the other project.
yeah, and the
Yeah.
reality is, I think this is one of the things too that's really important to understand is that the reality is that most employers, especially in the tech industry, they don't care where you learn the skills. They just care that you
Nope.
can do it. Like literally, I don't think I've ever had somebody ask me about my boot camp ever. Like never. Nobody's ever been like, "Where'd
Nope.
you learn this?" They're just like, "Can you do this? Looks like you can do it. Here's money." Right?
Yeah.
That's one of the amazing things about tech. But the reality is that opens it up to people who are highly motivated and who are committed to the idea, right? And those are the two most important things that I think you need, right? I think you need to be highly motivated and then committed that you're going to follow through on this. With those two things, you can literally do anything in this industry. Without
Dude,
those things,
anybody can
you
learn it.
can't
Yeah.
do anything in this
Yeah.
industry because the reality is 99.9% of you being a developer comes down to you. Nobody can teach it to you. You have to learn it on your own. And that's one of the hardest things about this is that most people, especially with the stories that are being told about boot camps, think that I can just pay some amount of money and then the education will end up in my head. And it doesn't work that way.
I just wanted to mention one thing too, because David Campbell said he's got like 20 projects on GitHub. Most of them are useless, so I set to private. Private is just making it so that nobody can, not anyone can look at the repo. We were talking about making these projects live too, so I think that's a good thing. Is think about projects you can make that you could actually you'd be happy putting out to the world. You know, they don't have
Yeah.
to be crazy, but just starting on that process to get started, even if it's a simple thing first to launch, is a good idea because it gets you to walk through that process and see how it's done, and then you have the
Yeah.
like kind of confidence to start doing that. But I think you're right. Without that motivation, without that desire to really do it, it's not going to happen.
And I think
Yeah.
one more thing, so like highly motivated and committed are important, but also resilient because there's going to be
Yeah.
Yeah.
so many times when you want to quit, like
Yeah.
guaranteed,
Imposter syndrome
guaranteed.
every day, every
Yeah.
hour.
Yeah.
Hmm.
It's true.
Living.
I still get it all the time. I'm
Oh yeah.
like, this, am I really cut out for this? There's so much I don't know. And that's one of the hardest things to actually deal with is that you're when you get into tech, into software development, you're gonna realize like every day that you go and you learn something new, it's a weird curve. I know there's like a visual for this, but like the more you learn, the more you realize you don't know.
That's true
And
about
this-
everything though too, I think.
it
It's not
is,
just tech,
but this industry is like particularly
Yeah, because there's
there's
so
just
much stuff.
so much out there. I mean, you can read like the other day, I was just going through Firebase documentation again. I was like, Jesus Christ, there's like literally 10,000 pages of
And they
documentation
update it
just for
all the
Firebase.
time,
Yeah.
dude. Like,
And it's
well,
like,
Next.js just changed how when you restart a new project, they just changed that now. So when you
yeah,
start it, it's a new layout. It's like crazy. Yeah, it's all
yeah,
the time.
it's wild. So, yeah, it's something that you're just gonna have to get used to, and be adaptable and so forth. So, um, yeah, it takes a lot of discipline and willingness to research the docs. David Campbell, yes,
Yes, it
absolutely.
does.
Like if you don't love reading, you're not gonna love software development at all. I promise you, because a lot of what you're gonna do is reading. There's and like when you're
Reading and
starting out,
problem
there's
solving, those are the two things.
yeah. Like when you're starting out, there's a lot of tutorials and like things you can watch where people like walk you through things and like baby step you. When you get to more advanced stuff, there's less and less and less and less and less because the technologies are newer, they're harder to use or more complicated. And there's less people who are willing to just walk you through a tutorial on YouTube of how to do exactly what you're trying to do. It just doesn't work that way. So anyway,
Nice.
with that, do you guys have any final thoughts
No.
about boot camps and our love for boot camps? How much we absolutely love boot camps? No. Okay, so with that, thank you guys for tuning in. If you guys are interested in something a little bit different, we do offer something that I would say is unique. You can't really find out there, and that is coaching, right? When
Yeah.
we first started this program, one of the first things that I did was I went onto Reddit and started looking at some of the programming groups, and like the number one comment inside of these groups, if you look at it, is can somebody teach me to code? Right? Because most people just want somebody to teach them how to code because learning is hard, right? Learning is hard. So why should I put in all the work learning when
When
I can
somebody else can just
somebody
guide
else
me by
do it?
hand.
Yeah, like
Yeah.
somebody else can just put the knowledge in my brain. And that's what I think a lot of people are looking for. And if that is you, it's not going to happen in a boot camp, and it's not going to happen necessarily on your own. It takes a lot of work to do that on your own. So you might as well be part of a group where we can just inject knowledge into your brain. Like we have this machine and you just connect your brain to it.
Think of
Then
Keanu
we put
Reeves
all the
as
knowledge in
Neo.
there.
You just plug
And
right back in the back of your head, and then
yeah,
you know kung fu, right? Or react.
exactly. Yeah. And so this program, it's called the
I
Web
know
Dev. I'm just
react.
kidding.
Sorry.
We don't actually inject knowledge into you, but we're pretty much there. We're almost at the cusp of releasing this new technology. And so
We're testing it on a whole bunch of
we need
Guinea
some
pigs.
guinea pigs, is what I'm
Yeah.
trying to say. So if you're interested in becoming a guinea pig and letting us, connect some chip into your brain so you can learn software technology, um, we want to have you inside the group. More seriously, though, the group is for people who are highly committed, who really want this dream, who are like serious. They want to become a web developer, and they're willing to do whatever it takes to get there. But they just need a little bit of guidance and a network, a community of people to help them along the way. That's what we offer inside the Web Dev Incubator. It's really just a community of people who are highly committed to this idea, not like looky loos, not people who are like, this seems
And
cool,
solid
but I just want
networking too.
money. What's that?
Like real networking too.
Yes, exactly. Like these people, I would, I saw this comment a while ago, but somebody in the web dev incubator, I think it might have been Bryce or something. He was like, I've only been in this group for like a week, but I feel like these are like my best friends I've had for life. And
Yeah.
that is like a reality. I think everybody inside the group is a tight knit community. We're able to really share our passion for software development. And I think that's what helps us all connect and really build a solid community. So if you want to be part of that, if you want to become a software developer, if you're struggling to find a community, or you just need motivation, accountability, you need some guidance in what to learn, when to learn it, or if you just want to build some real projects that you can put on your resume, this is the exact program for you. Like you're not going to find this in a boot camp. You're not going to find this on Udemy. You're not going to find this anywhere else. It only exists in this group. So if that is you, we would love to have you inside the group. We'd love to have a conversation with you. And so what we usually do is we set up an action call just to see sort of like where you are as a developer, get an idea of like what your goals are and if this might be a good program for you. If not, no big deal. But if we call that an action call, so if you guys would like, we have a free action call. It's 30 minutes. We just have a, sort of casual discussion with you about your goals, give you some free feedback and some information about what you should be focusing your energy on. So if you want to get on one of those action calls, there's two options. You can either just reach out to us directly through Facebook Messenger, or two, you can write in the comments of this video, fuck boot camps, and we'll reach out to you.
The other thing you can also do too, three, you can on the Facebook group, there's a post that says action
Yes.
calls, and there's a link in there. You can actually just schedule one also.
Yes, you can do that as well.
But the coolest way is to write "fuck boot camps" down in the comments.
Yeah,
So that's
and
clearly
even if you don't want to
serious,
call,
do
you
it
can just write it now. If you're serious, I love how Facebook or maybe Zoom does like auto comments, but when you say curse words, it makes them all asterisks.
Yeah.
Nice.
Like nobody
It
likes
already knows how to censor us.
it does.
Being
All
censored.
right. Well, we got to
Anyway.
get going to
Oh,
Web
yeah,
Dev
Yeah,
got
with
Incubator.
that,
All
if
right.
you are inside the Web Dev Incubator, we'll see you in 15 minutes at 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time for our Saturday call. Love you guys. Have a great Saturday. Everyone else who's watching, enjoy your Saturday. Spend some time with friends, family, and enjoy the sun while it's still here because it's still slightly summer.
All right.
Yeah.
Later, fellas.
Later.
Peace.